Hey guys, and today I'm going to chat to you about a topic that is something that I have personally been through, as well as a lot of clients, a lot of women that email me and talk to me about, and that basically is post-comp binge eating. Now, I know this is a really big topic, and I want to preface this video by saying I'm not a psychologist. I am not somebody that is an expert when it comes to these sort of issues, but from personal experience, from working with clients, and also research amongst the topic that I have done, I've been able to understand a little bit more about what goes on. And then also I want to give you guys some tips if you are in this position and you are struggling, of how you can better deal with it, how you can overcome it, and some really good ways to move forward in your life. Because I just want to tell you one thing, it is not I wouldn't say it's a normal thing to occur, but I would have to say that it's a very common thing to occur. Obviously, it's not healthy. We all know that it's unhealthy behavior, but why is it that people who have competed before, or maybe it's your first time doing a show, this tends to happen? And I would say that it'd be very hard to get stats on it. Just from personal experience with clients, friends, people in the industry, I would say it probably happens to 50% of competitors. That probably 50% of the people that step off stage are not perfect with their reverse diet, with their post-show plan, whatever it is, and probably go down the binge eating route for at least a day or two. But for some people, this can continue on, and it can be for weeks, it can be for months, and it can basically completely ruin everything that they built towards in this competition. But not only how it affects their body, but for me as a coach, it's more important as to how it affects their mental state. Because if you've done, let's think about it this way, all of this hard work, let's say you've been dieting for like 24 weeks, like a big prep, like a big 6 months of your life that you've dedicated to this competition, and all your energy has been focused on that, all of your energy. You've been really focused on achieving this goal, stepping on stage, all of these things, and then all of a sudden you tick that off your list. Or let's say, for example, you actually pull out of your comp and you don't compete, or whatever it is. Let's just say that you stop. So that you stop this period where your sole goal is focused on aesthetics, focused on getting leaner, focused on body fat, focused on all of these things. That's like your main goal for that 6-month period. And then what happens when that stops? What happens when the goal is not focused on that, is not focused on the aesthetic, is not focused on sticking to a plan and being super strict and seeing the changes physically in the mirror? Because when you're going through this dieting stage, you're seeing the changes, and that's motivating you to be more compliant to a dietary regime. Everyone knows that. When you see changes, it motivates you. When you don't see changes, it demotivates you. So when you're seeing these changes and you say checking in with your coach and everything's going well and everything's going according to plan, you're getting leaner every week, it's super motivating. Let's say, for example, it's your first show and you've never been this lean in your life and you've never looked better. And then all of a sudden show day comes and you're tanned and shredded and you look awesome and you're so proud of yourself. And often two things can happen. One, you might not get the placing that you wanted, or you might not get a placing at all, and you might be a bit disappointed. And that can be kind of the stimulus for this post-show binge, because it's almost like that fuck it approach. It's like, well, whatever, like, you know, I didn't place, so it's obviously not for me, and like, I don't care anymore. And that can be one of the approaches. The other thing is that even if sometimes you do well, I've got some competitors that win shows and friends that have won shows before and still go down that route, still go down that binge route. I've been in that position before myself, and I'll be 100% transparent with you guys. Before, I remember after like my first probably year of competing, and I think I did about maybe 4 or 5 shows in that first year, and after every single show I did it. After every single show I went and binged for at least a day or two. And I mean like all out, like going and eating just ridiculous amount of calories. Back then I was on bro dieting plans. I wasn't tracking macros. So I didn't really like know what I was consuming. And at the time I didn't have coaches who had post-show plans in place. A lot of the time I was going from comp to comp. So it was kind of like in my head mentally going, well, I've got a few days before I get back onto getting ready for my next show. So I'm just going to do whatever the fuck I want, which is a really bad attitude to have about the thing. But then that also comes down to the coaching. So the big thing for me is that when I learned to follow a more flexible dieting lifestyle, it didn't tend to happen as much. And I'm not saying that I've ever been perfect when it's come to competing. I've still had my moments with things, but definitely the last shows that I've ever done, it's been a lot easier to get back into that reverse dieting process when you have a plan in place and you have a coach there checking in with you, being accountable with you, setting your new macro targets, setting your new training targets, setting your new cardio, all of that. It makes it a lot easier. The other big thing is understanding that when you finish this type of a sport where the last 6 months of your life has been all about how you physically look, a lot of people can feel really lost because they're now worried in their head that if they start eating again and they start reverse dieting and they start putting on a little bit of body fat, which is obviously going to happen as part of the process, that they're going to feel lost, that they're not going to feel like the same person. And a lot of this comes back to the mental side of things. And I was chatting to another male coach who I have a lot of respect for the other day in the gym, and we were talking about it, and I'm sure he won't care about me chatting about this, but he was discussing how a female client he was working with was really, really struggling with it. And he was having a chat to me about it because obviously I work with a lot of females that deal with this. And I think it was very different from a male coach to understand a female perspective on the topic, and hopefully it gave him a little bit of insight into how fucking batshit crazy us females are sometimes. But I want you to think about it this way. Maybe if you're a male coach watching this or a male competitor, and even my partner Sean, we were chatting about it too, and he's reverse dieting at the moment and he's like the model client. And I remember him a couple of days out from his show being like, I said, how do you feel? And he said, I can't wait to get this over and done with because I want to start making gains and I want to start putting on size and I'm excited to start being big again. I feel skinny, all of these things. Now, if you think about that from a female perspective, not many girls when they compete are going to be saying that in the last few days. Most girls are going to be saying things like, oh, I don't know if I'm lean enough, I need to be smaller, I still feel fat, I still feel bloated. Yes, this occurs. Or they'll be saying, I love the way I look. I don't want to have to put on body fat. I don't want to have to reverse diet. I want to look like this all the time. A lot of girls prefer the way they look when they're competing compared to their off season when they have to put a little bit of body fat. Whereas guys, on the other hand, they're okay with it. They're okay making gains. They can wear baggy t-shirts. They can do what they want. They can hide it a little bit more. And guys don't tend to get the stigma of gaining fat as much as what girls do in society, unfortunately. And I think that social media adds a lot of pressure on that. When you go on social media, there's a lot of girls who are shredded and in shape year round, and that's obviously the goal that people go for. But I'm here to tell you that that is not realistic. That's not long term. A lot of these images are photoshopped. A lot of these images probably were from a period of their life when they're shredded, and they might not be posting up-to-date photos. Another thing is, obviously, I'm not going to go into it, but PEDs, so there may be drug use there that's getting them to maintain that really, really lean physique year round. Or they may be super, super unhealthy is the other big thing to remember. Sure, you can probably try to stay lean year round, but it might be a case of having to do hours of cardio every day and eating super, super low calories to stay there, messing up your hormones, losing your period, all of these things that at the end of the day are far more important, your health and how you look physically. But as a female, when you attach all of your emotion to how you look physically, this is where problems can go wrong, and this is where binge eating can occur. Because a lot of women go, well, if I don't have my physique, what do I do? What do I have? And then they feel really, really lost. And like I said before, it's different for guys because guys tend to be a little bit more okay with making gains and putting on a little bit of body fat. And if you say that to a female client and you say, look, we need to build a little bit of muscle, and with that, we're probably going to have a little bit of fat gain. We're obviously going to try to minimize that by sticking to a reverse diet. But it's going to occur. That's just part of the process. If you're going to eat more calories, you're going to be putting on a little bit of body fat. And a lot of females will not like doing that. They will not like that process. They will freak out. And then they'll do the opposite and go and binge eat and do the fuck it approach, which only makes things worse. Because as soon as you binge eat, as soon as you overeat, as soon as you have these periods of overfeeding, you're going to gain fat even faster than what you would following a reverse diet. The goal of a reverse diet is to slowly reverse out, slowly bring up your calories so that your metabolism also is obviously being optimized in the process, that your work capacity is sometimes decreasing in terms of cardio, but often increasing in terms of resistance training so that you're putting on lean muscle mass, and lean muscle mass is obviously also going to assist your metabolic rate. So that is the process of a reverse diet. The goal of it is to not gain excessive body fat. If you are gaining excessive body fat, there's probably two things going on. You're either reversing too fast, so calories are going up way too quickly, or you're cheating and you're binging and you're overfeeding and you're not sticking to your reverse dieting plan. And then the problem is, guys, is that your body is in such a sensitive state when you finish a dieting period. As soon as you finish, your body is primed for fat, like fat gain, straight up. your metabolism slowed down, you're doing lots of cardio or you're doing lots of training. So of course your body wants to put on fat quickly. It's hard to stay at this lean physique. And that is why coming into a slow reverse diet, as hard as it can be, it is the healthiest thing to do in terms of body fat overshooting, number one, so gaining fat way too fast, and then just how you feel mentally as well. If you can see yourself slowly reversing out and only seeing small changes and you're just making gains muscular wise, just getting a small amount of body fat, you're feeling better, you have more energy, your libido is coming back, your period's coming back for a lot of girls, and focusing on all those positives rather than just looking in the mirror and seeing a little bit of fat gain and freaking out, then that's what's going to help you stay on track. So guys, I could talk about this topic all day long, but I guess the biggest thing I want to say is I want to have all the girls out there that are listening. If you have struggled with, say, a post-dieting binge eating or post-comp prep binge eating, is that it's common, but we don't want to see it as normal. We want to understand that it does happen and you're never going to be perfect. You're always going to have moments, and I myself have improved over the years. Like when I first used to compete, I used to like binge for like a week and then it, reduced to like a day or 2 days, and now it might be to one meal or whatever it is. But you tend to be able to understand that there's no positive sides to that. You only feel like shit. There's no reasoning as to how food's going to make you feel any better about the situation. And you're not alone in this, but at the same time, you need to get help and ask for help. So guys, I'm going to give you a couple of top tips on how you can kind of avoid that post-comp binge, or if it does happen, what are the best steps to take to, I guess, reduce the impact of that and get yourself back on track. All right, my number one tip, guys, you got to get back in the gym. You got to enjoy making some progress in the gym. One of the biggest things is that when you finish this comp period, you have no clear goal. And often if your coach has said to you, look, you need to have a break from competing, you need to have a solid off season, and we'll look at doing a show maybe in a year's time, in your head, you're like, so that means I've got to be fat for a year. And that is how a lot of females will think. And that is absolutely not the case. If I say to a client, you're going to have a full year off, maybe even more, a year and a half, 16 months off, and then we're going to start a prep, that means we can do an even slower reverse diet and really slowly bring you out of this to optimize obviously muscle gain, but also minimize that body fat overshooting period. If I'm doing a shorter reverse diet with a client, if anything, I'll probably go more aggressive in bringing their calories up. Let's say, for example, they have to do it in a show in another couple of months and their calories are super low. We're going to have to get a little bit more aggressive and bring that up, or have a diet break, whatever it is. So the biggest thing, guys, is make sure you have goals that are non-aesthetic based. So you have a goal in the gym, or you have a goal in life, that you're kind of focusing all that energy you put into that comp prep for 6 months on something else. So for me, one of the best things I ever did was I did some more strength training based goals. So I had a goal, I remember finishing competing, and I was like, I want to hit a 100 kilo squat. I'd never really been good at squats, and that was one of my goals. So my training program, we periodized that so that I was doing squats a couple more times a week. I was still doing all my accessory work for changing from an aesthetic standpoint, but just having a few more mental goals in the gym. I feel like women often, and a generalization here again, but a lot of girls don't go into the gym with the aim of progressively overloading. So what I mean by that is aiming to pick up a heavier set of dumbbells than you did the last week, or do an extra rep, or do an extra set, whatever it is, so that you're adding volume. So a big tip is try to progressively overload in the gym. Go into the gym and see it as where you're going to progress and you're going to strive, and set yourself some gym-based goals or some training-based goals, rather than it being all about aesthetics. So if you set a goal and it's like, well, I want to get my ass 5 centimeters bigger, it's still an aesthetic goal. I get that it is a gym-related goal, but I mean more specific. I mean, I want to be able to do 10 bodyweight chin-ups. I want to be able to squat 80 kilos. Whatever it is, have some specific gym goals, so that whenever you go into the gym, you're not staring at yourself in the mirror and going, oh my God, I'm getting fat. Oh my God, I can see this bit of back fat here, or whatever it is. Instead, you're going in with the mindset of going, I'm here to kick some ass, and I'm here to do whatever I can to get stronger. And I know with getting stronger, I'm going to make gains in the right places. I'm going to feel mentally better, all of these things. And this is why, like, a lot of people will hate on CrossFit and different sports like that. I don't hate CrossFit. I think it has a time and a place. And I've actually had a few clients that have come out of a comp prep phase and felt very lost. And I've actually encouraged them to add in a couple of CrossFit or full body sessions a couple of times a week, obviously along with our resistance training. but just as something mentally to push them a little bit more, to have something that where they're going in there for performance based. They're not going in there for aesthetics, because the gym can get a little bit redundant in terms of that, and you can feel a little bit demotivated. So it's also important to have deloads and breaks from the gym. So for example, if you've been training weight 6 days a week on your comp prep, it might be a really good idea to pull back to 4 days a week and really focus on strength training for a little while and focus on making those sessions really count, so you're not exhausted in there and you haven't got anything left to give. All right, so my number 2 tip is don't be too fucking hard on yourself. That is a big one. Don't be so hard on yourself. If it happens, if you have a small binge, if you have something that occurs that puts you over, you just need to focus on the fact that you're not perfect. No one's going to expect you to be perfect in a reverse diet, but at the same time, you got to rein it in, because what's going to happen is you're going to get body fat overshooting and you're going to be really unhappy and you're going to want to start dieting again. You're going to want to pick a new show date and be like, I want to do a show earlier just so I can start dieting. And that is the worst time to start dieting, when you don't have your shit together. If you are still binge eating, if you are still yo-yoing on and off your reverse dieting plan, and then you go to your coach and say, well, I want to do another show, let's set a new show date, that is the worst time. Why? Because you're going to then start associating comp prep with lean control of food, and off season with binging and yo-yo dieting and ballooning out and a bad relationship with food. You want to make sure you're in a good mental position when you start a prep, and also when you're obviously ending and coming out of a prep. So my big tip is, if you do have a moment where you've binged or overate, which again, like I said, it probably will happen on and off, is that you've got to go and take a moment to check what's going on in your life. Because people don't just binge for no reason. You don't just pick up a whole packet of Oreos and just eat them for no reason. There's a reason as to why you do that. So one of my big tips, and I pop a link down below, and that is to my ebook, which is basically helping you how to stop falling off your diet, so to speak, but just some tips. And it's a really good little sneaky ebook that just helps you with basically how to mentally check yourself, what's going on. Because like I said, we're adults. No one forces us to put food in our mouth. It happens for a reason. And a lot of those reasons are things like you're unhappy with certain things in your life, you're depressed, you're feeling alone, you're stressed, you're tired, you're dehydrated. A lot of these things will cause you to overeat or binge, and it's important to check yourself in that situation. Another big one, guys, and this is a massive, massive tip and a massive shift in mindset for me that's helped me a lot and also clients, is shift your perspective and start to focus in that moment on things that you can be grateful for. And I know that sounds very, very basic, but what I mean by that is, if you're in this state where you've just gone and binged because you've gone fuck it mode and you've gone, I hate the way I look at the moment, I hate gaining body fat, I'm not motivated, I've got nothing moving forward for me, everything in my life I'm unhappy about, and you're in this very negative mind state, same thing. Focus on what you can be grateful for. And I know that sounds super basic, but what it'll make you realize is you'll change your perspective about what's going on in your life. And you realize that your body fat really isn't the be all and end all at the end of the day. That it's okay to gain and lose a little bit body fat on and off. It doesn't change the person who you are, but your attitude does. And if you're super negative about everything going on in your life, and you're saying that, you know, the worst thing that's ever happened to you is that you've gained this bit of body fat and that you're binge eating a little bit, it really shifts your perspective away from what's really going on in life. So focus in that moment on what you can be grateful for. What are some things that you can really be grateful for in your life? Because sometimes when you're in such a negative state, it's hard to be grateful. And I mean simple things. You might be grateful for the fact that you have a roof over your head, grateful for the fact that you have a job, grateful for the fact that maybe you have a partner that supports you, grateful for the fact that you have a pet that loves you, grateful for the fact that you have food on your table, grateful for all of these things in your life. And I know it sounds really simple, but honestly, when you're in a negative mindset, if you can shift to focusing back on some of the positives and focusing on the fact that most of our problems when it comes to binge eating are first world problems. There's so much bigger shit going on in the world. There's people out there that are starving and in famine, and we're struggling with binge eating. I know that it sounds really simple, me saying it that way, but that has really, really helped me a lot over the years, is focusing back on, I need to have some goals because this needs to stop, but also at the same time, it's not a massive big deal. I'm not perfect. If this happens, okay, it's happened. I need to assess why it's happened and check myself, like I've said before, like with those tips in the free ebook below, but then really get myself back on track. So the last big tip, guys, is if you have fallen off the deep end, if you do feel like this has happened and you need to get yourself back on track, start a fresh day, start a fresh week. And the biggest thing that you can do, as much as you're going to want to avoid it, is check in with a coach or check in with someone. I would say having a coach during a reverse diet period for at least the first 10 weeks is so important, almost more important than the dieting phase. I have a compulsory 4-week minimum reverse diet period for my clients, and I'm always thinking about pushing that out more so because it is so important. Having someone there that you're accountable to. If you have no one you're accountable to, what's going to stop you from going down that route again? So having someone that you're accountable to, and as much as you don't want to, if you've had a binge or you've had one of these episodes and you don't want to get on the scales and you don't want to do your measurements, do them. Because what it's going to do is get you back into the right mindset. Don't let it beat you up. Don't let it get you down. But focus on, okay, that's where I'm at now. I don't want to be here again in another week. So what action steps can I take to make sure that I progress forward next week? And how can I utilize working with my coach, whatever it is, to set a better plan for me? A lot of the time, what can happen is sometimes you set the calories in a reverse diet too low, and this can cause the client to overeat because they're hungry. So a big tip is that as a coach personally, if I find I've got a client who's really struggling with it and they're binge eating and overeating, I'll sometimes go more aggressive in their reverse diet and bring their calories up a little bit faster. And that is because they're better off having a little bit more calories Monday to Sunday, like every single day of the week, than them having some massive binge on the weekend, blowing out their calories completely and just feeling like shit. So at the end of the day, you got to find a plan that works. But honestly, from experience, flexible dieting, macro tracking, coming out of your reverse in a safe fashion, working with a coach consistently, and speaking up if you're having these issues, speaking to someone. Because at the end of the day, if you've got no one to chat to about it, you're going to be alone in this and it's just going to keep happening. The other big tip, like I said, is don't just jump into another dieting state. Don't just jump into picking another show date. Focus on fixing what's going on up here before you get back to that. The last one is don't put so much pressure on yourself to be this aesthetic fitness model, whatever it is, being super shredded year round and having that be the only thing that you're defined for. You are so much more than that. And I think that's a big thing that I've learned over the years is that I used to really fixate my personal body image and if people liked me, if I was popular, if I had a following, with how I looked, like physically, how low my body fat was, all of these things. And over the years, I've learned that you attract the wrong people for those reasons anyway. And you want to be known for who you are as a person. That's just a part of who you are. Even as a coach, I'm completely in the fitness industry, but I would hope that my physique is just a part of who I am. It's just a part of my journey. It's just a part of me. It's not me. I'm not defined for that. I would hope that people don't say, oh, I follow her just because of her physique or whatever it is. I would hope they follow me because I have a brain and that I give out good content. I try to help change people's lives. There's so much more to that. So focus on all of the other things, all of the positives about yourself. Write down 10 things you like about yourself that are not aesthetic. I dare you to go write that down now, because it will make you get in such a better state. And even if you can't think of 10, ask someone that loves you to write some down. Ask your friends, ask your mum, ask someone that cares about you to write down 10 things that are non-aesthetic that they like about you. Because at the end of the day, guys, when you're 70, no one's going to give a shit that you had a hot body back in your 20s. They're going to give a shit if you're a good person. So if your sole focus in life is just focus on aesthetics, it's only going to end in a negative. So focus on the positives, focus on the positive stuff in your life, and please don't be too hard on yourself. This is a very tough thing to get through. It can be very difficult, but I would highly recommend that you continue to work with a coach. You work with someone that can help you through this issue, either reverse dieting or working out through a binge eating plan, how we can create a strategy around your life, all of these things. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be that person that's stuck in this state where you hate food and you've got this toxic relationship with it and you're so on and off with food and dieting, and that you just lose that self-love for yourself at the end of the day. Ladies, it is okay to gain a little bit of body fat. It's okay to make gains. It's good for you. It's healthy to reverse diet, to get everything back on track. And focus on the positives. Focus on all the positives of following some form of a reverse diet rather than the negatives. So I hope this video was helpful for you if you have been struggling with binge eating. If you have any questions, please email me. I'm happy to help, as I love working with people on this and helping them through this through this journey basically. So you can email me direct, alice@aliceround.com, and otherwise jump in the free ebook below, and I will chat to you in the next video.